Hi everyone, I'm Srinivas. Okay, I'm your instructor for this complete DevOps course. Okay, uh, so you might have already heard the term DevOps, how it is in the market. You have all the information, I think so. So the reason why we are going to DevOps. Okay, so to understand like DevOps, right? We need to understand first what actually the current life cycle. Then you will understand the current life cycle of an application. Okay, how the application delivery happens and what are the challenges in the application delivery process. And once you understand those, right, then you will understand like why actually we are going to DevOps. Okay, so first let's understand like how the application delivery process would be in our in the traditional method. Instead of directly going to the topic DevOps, what actually DevOps, why we use the DevOps. Okay, so instead of going that, let's first understand what's the current application delivery process, or we can say the application release process. Okay, so to understand that, right, first we will see how the application delivery process would be in the current companies, how the actually it will follow. Okay, for example, just assume that uh, a company got a requirement. Assume that Edipoli is our institute, okay, wherein we'll provide training, right? We have an application, okay, like edupoli.in. Okay, assume that this is the application. Assume that there is an application is there. Okay, we have a requirement from one of the company, like please develop an application and provide it to them. Okay, this is a current requirement. Okay, so once we have the requirement, right, to build a website, edupoli.in from any company. Okay, then what is the first thing actually that we need to think of is like how to build the website or how to build the application. Okay, for that, in the first phase, like how the complete delivery process will happen, just we'll try to understand that. In the first phase, right? Yeah, we got a requirement for the client. Actually, they need a application, some of the application. Assume that it is edupoli.in for example. Okay, so first we need to gather the requirements. Sorry, 1 second. There is some issue. Okay. First, we need to understand the requirements. What exactly is needed for the application to build? Like, for example, we need to build the application in a using Java platform, or we need to build an application using the Python, or for instance, any other coding language. Okay, first we need to gather the requirements from the client, like how we need to develop. Is it we need to develop using Java or something like that? For instance, assume that we got the requirement that we need to develop using Java. So once we have the clear requirements, right, then we need to start coding the application. So once the application coding is done, for example, for the edupoli.in website, right? Once the complete coding application is done, then what we do is we need to test the application, how it is working, what are the challenges, if there are any issues in the application or not. So after testing, right, then actually we will build that application we'll build that application. Building the application in the sense like to any executable format. For example, in Linux, right, we will convert that into the shell script, or if it is a Python, we'll convert that into the Python file, or if it is a uh, or if it is for Windows system, right, we'll generate the WAR files or JAR files, okay, in such a way. So we will get into more details about building the application just in the coming, after few minutes, okay. Just for instance, like building the application in the sense, converting the code into a executable format. We call it as a building the application. So once building the application is right, then we need to deploy it. So once deployment is completed, then we need to monitor the application. So this is a complete release process for an application. So what is that? First, initially, if you think that we got an idea. Okay, first we got an idea like to build a website, Kukatpally.in. So after that, we'll gather the requirements, whether to execute that application, to build the code using Java or Python or something like that. Once we have that right, we'll code the application, we will test it, we'll build that application, we will deploy, and we will monitor. So this is a complete application release process. Okay, so this is the process that current companies are using it. Okay, so in this application release process, what are the challenges that we are facing? To overcome the process, to overcome the challenges in the current application release process, right? At any point of time, we might have some challenges using test, using build, using deploy while monitoring. So there might be many challenges actually. There are many challenges. Instead of saying might, there are challenges in release process. So to overcome those challenges, we are streamlining the complete process in such a way that there shouldn't be any delay in releasing the application. There shouldn't be any errors while deploying the application, and the application release mechanism should be very fast. Okay, so to overcome these challenges, right, then we are streamlining the process. That process actually, we call it as a DevOps. DevOps is nothing but it's not a single technology or something. DevOps is like a combination of tools. We are using some different combination of tools using which we are streamlining the process in such a way that to overcome the slowness, to make it error prone, to make the application release process or application delivery process faster, we are going to the DevOps. Okay, so this is like the basic understanding of why we are going to DevOps. If you understand what is the current application release process, then you should be able to, then we can get clarity on DevOps by using which tools actually we are making this process streamlined without any errors, such a way that, okay. So is it clear till now? Any doubts? Okay, I want everyone to involve in the class. Okay, so if you ask questions, right, then you will get more clarity on the topic. Okay, yeah, I hope there is no questions. Let's move on. Okay, so first we will understand like what are the challenges in the current application release process. Okay. Okay. For example, assume that development team and there is an operations team. Okay. So developments, if we call it as an intersection of development team and the operations team. Okay, you will get more understanding about this terminology and the terms why we are using DevOps in the application release process, right? Because it is an intersection of development and operations. Okay, so now we will understand what are the duties of development team, what are the duties of operations team. So that once you understand that, right, then we can able to identify the challenges. Using that challenges, how we can overcome that using the DevOps tools. Okay, this is what we are going to do now. So first development team will build the code, okay, and hand it over to the operations team. So we are discussing now the challenges in the application release process. Okay, So now developments will develop the code and will hand over to the operations team. What operations team will do is operations team will deploy in a particular server in an environment. Assume that it is a production server and application team will deploy it so that application will start running. Okay, so in the current scenario, right, when development team is building the code, in the current scenario, when development team is building the code, right, okay, they need to document the complete steps, how the code is been built. Okay, how the code is been built, and they will provide this documentation to the operations team, and operations team will follow the specific instructions and they will deploy the application. Okay. So there is a chance of that if any of the development team, right, any of the development team, the documentation is not proper, or if the steps they are maintaining by the development team, by mistakenly they have updated the wrong in the documentation, then there might be issues in the deploying the application. Okay. So in this approach, right, there is a chance of miscommunication. There is a chance of miscommunication between the development team and operations team. So not only like installable files, what are the infrastructure layer? Say, for example, they are developing the code in a current development environment wherein they have some 4 CPUs, some 8 GB memory, some storage. Okay. And if they forgot to inform or to the operations team, right, then there is a challenges of that operations team may face issues while deploying the application. Okay. So as the documentation method, everything is manual, right? So to overcome this manual process, how to overcome this manual process? This is one of the challenges that current traditional method of application release process is facing. Okay. So we call them as, just to understand the terminology, if there is a miscommunication, or we can say that the handover process between the development team and application team is not correct, or it is manual, then there is a challenges that the application release may slow down because of this. So once operations team identified that, yeah, there is some issue, again, operations team has to come back and ask the development team, I am getting some error. Then again, development team has to correct it and they need to inform it, or so any kind of scenario. So as the process is completely manual, right, then there is a chances of delaying the application release process. So the main intention of DevOps is to make the release process faster. Okay, that is the reason we are going to DevOps. Okay, we are using specific tools to streamline the process. This is one. Another one is like, we can say conflict of interest, in the sense development team. Okay, development will start the code. Okay, will start building the code. Assume that V1 is a version of the code that they have created and developed to the operation team to deploy. Okay, so now the main intention of like development team is the main intention of development team is to add as many features as possible, right? The main purpose of development is, if the client asks more features, yeah, we need to add the login credentials, we need to create the videos for the in a dot site, right? That currently we are talking about. In that, if the client asks us to add videos, to add the documentation, everything, then the development teachers will, the development team will keep on adding the versions, V1, V2, V3, V4. In the same way, they will hand over to the deployment team to deploy it to the production environment, so that the end user will use the application with advanced features. So the development team always concentrate on the delivering the new features. Okay, whereas the deployment team is, right, the deployment team always tries to maintain the stability of the system. Okay. So the main purpose of the deployment team, or we can call it as an operations team. Okay. The main purpose is like they need to maintain the stability. They added a features. If assume that the features that have added, right, without proper testing or something, if they have any issues, if the operations team deployed in the production environment, then the end users may have issues, challenges in facing the application, right? So the develop in the same, again, they need to come back and they need to switch to the V1 version. Now assume that there are some more features added to the V3. Assume that operations team is deployed V3 version. And the operations team observed that, yeah, for this to the additional features is added, right? The CPU memory would consume more for this application as additional features is added. Okay. But development team like forgot to communicate or something related to that, right? Then again, operations team will face challenges in stability. Again, they need to go to the development team and convey that, yeah, there are issues. Again, they need to switch to the V2. So always the deployment or operations team, right, try to maintain the stability. In the same way, development team always try to update the features. So there is a simple conflict of interest is there. So there is a delay in the process. So to make this, we call them as a conflict of interest. Okay. So always the main intention of the complete whole team is right to maintain the stability of the application. This is the single goal everyone should have. In the application release process, the application should have stability so that the end user shouldn't have any issues. Okay. So during this process, right, there is some delay in the application release process. We call it as because of some conflict of interest, there is a changes in the current application release process. Okay. In the same way, there is some issues in the security. In the security, in the sense, so development team is working on an environment, okay, where, for example, consider they are working on a Linux environment. To work on in the development environment and the difference between production, right, there would be more security levels would be more high compared to the development team. As in, when development team is working on a code, right, generally they will disable the firewall and they will keep on installing the libraries they want. They will keep on installing the dependencies. Okay, without to work this application, right, in the development environment, the development team can try to install everything and try to, the main intention is to make it work with whatever the dependencies, libraries, everything. Okay, so they are compromising on a security part. Whereas in production environment, right, there would be very strict rules. The firewalls will not be open. Only specific ports would be open. Okay. And also the security, the dependencies, the library files that we are going to install, right? In the way we are installing in the development environment, we don't have that similar process. We can directly install that. There would be many restrictions. We need to take approvals, whether this package is vulnerability free or some proper testing is happened. Is there any kind of licensed versions are using or not? So there is some security level compromisation will also happen in the development environment when compared to the production environment. So this is, suppose if there is any, this package they have installed, assume that development team installed this library and make the application work. Assume that this library is not present in the production environment and it is not authorized. Okay, then the application won't work properly. So again, the production team or deployment team come to DevOps. Yeah, the application is not working because this package is not available. Again, they need to download the latest library and they need to install. Okay, and they need to install. Okay, so in that way, they need to install, right? So this is calling some slowdown of the application release process. Okay, so these are, and the most important thing is the complete the process, right, in the application release process as of the current scenario is like everything is manual. Okay, we need to develop the code. After developing the code, we need to test it. Each and every part of the code, we need to test it manually. And then we need to build the code manually. Okay, and then we need to deploy the code manually. So everything, every process is a manual work. So whenever there is a manual work, there is a chance of error, right? There is a chance of error, which is causing the application process slowdown. So these are all the challenges in the current application release process. Okay. So to overcome these challenges, right, we are moving to the DevOps. Okay. So hope you should understand now at this stage, like why we are going to the DevOps methodology to overcome the current challenges in the application. So the current application release process, right? Maybe the companies follow the waterfall model or agile methodology. Okay. But these are the challenges that current application release process or the traditional method of application delivery process is happening, right? To overcome these challenges, we are going to the DevOps. Okay. This is the reason we are going to DevOps. Okay. So till now, hope it is clear. And if anybody have doubts, right, they can ask so that you will get more clarity on the topic. Okay, I suggest you to ask more questions. Okay. Okay, if nobody have questions, we can move it. We can move further. Okay. So now you understand the process, right? The main intention is to going to DevOps is to make the application release process or application delivery process smoother without any issues. So during using these challenges, right? As of the current scenario, it is the current, suppose if any new feature is developed to go to the production environment, it's taking some weeks time or 2 weeks or month time also because of the challenges. Okay. So how we are overcome these challenges using different tools. Okay. In DevOps, we are using different tools actually to overcome these challenges. So in what stage we are using specific tools. Now we will see what are the tools that we are using DevOps methodology to overcome the slowdown of application release process. Okay. In the complete course scenario, we are going to learn about the tools that we are discussing now. Okay. Okay. Now assume that Kukatpally website is there. Okay. Now we have developed the code. Okay. Assume that we have an application now. Till now, assume that application is ready and we have deployed in a local environment. So in general, how we will access the environment in locally, for example, Kukatpally.in website is there. Once the code is deployed right in the development environment, we can access using HTTP as it is local, right? Localhost. Okay, using this in the local environment, using this URL, we can access the application. Whereas in come to the production environments, like the everyone in the whole world, someone should access, right? Then we will install on a production system. We'll deploy it on a production system, the Kukatpally.in website, and it can be accessed at HTTP with secure protocol. Okay, HTTP and HTTPS. The difference is like HTTP runs on port 80 and HTTPS runs on port 443. It is secure. Okay. And then there would be some website name would be there, right? For this, like Kukatpally.in. Okay. Using this, the complete, everyone should able to access the application. Okay. Just I told this one just to understand how to access the application locally, how to access the application to the entire world. Okay. Okay. So assume that now the application process, the release process is completed, and we are hand over that application to the client, and everyone is using that application. Okay. So now in this scenario, okay. So now till now at Edupoli only one or two developers are there. They build the Edupoli website, okay, and hand over to the client. So now assume that Edupoli.in website has more usage in the number of users got increased, and the number of people using that application is high because we develop new features, everything. Okay. So at this scenario, will the single or two developers is enough for us to maintain the code? No, right? So for that, what we are doing is, for example, one developer is there. Okay. They are keep on working on the website Edupoli. Now it is handed over to the client. So assume that number of users are increased, and the requirement is now like to increase the features of the Edupoli website. Like we need to include from the client, there is a requirement like to add more features to the website, like adding the platforms, practice labs, everything. So for that, the number of features, assume that the number of users from 1,000, it has increased to somewhere around 10,000 or 50,000. So the features, we have to increase the features also. Okay. So in that scenario, using one developer to work on the Edupoli website is a bit difficult. So what we did it, we are hiring number of developers. Okay. So we are hiring number of developers. Now what happens is, right, this developer have code in the local and they are working on it. In the same way, we are assigned some tasks to the another developers. They are working on the code. In the same way, all developers working on the code locally. But to merge all this code, right, in a single platform. So all this code we have to merge on a single place, right? So that the new features is available in the main production system. But everyone has developed individually. They have their code in there locally. But the all code should be merged, right? To make it available, the all features available in a single environment. Okay, for that, what we are using is we are maintaining a GitHub repository. Okay, there is a repository as part of the Devops tools, right? We are learning GitHub. Okay, GitHub is a repository wherein we will update all the code in the centralized location. This is called as GitHub. We are maintaining the complete code in a single repository, wherein every developer pulls the code from the repository, start working, and then again merge to the repository. In the same way, all developers will start working on the new features and update to the single repository. Okay, there are many in the market. There are many repositories like GitHub, Bitbucket, okay, GitLab. There are many repositories are there, but as part of our course, we are learning GitHub is a repository that we learn. Okay, so one thing that you need to think of is, yeah, GitHub is a repository. Yeah, they are pulling the code from the repository to the local and they are working. Okay, so to do this, right, we need a tool. Git is a tool. We call it as a Git is a tool, version control tool. Okay, which is used to pull the code from the repository and again push the code to the repository. Okay, so the new features, assume that this developer has pushed the code to this. Now the latest code is available in the repository, the latest features. Okay, now this developer has to work on the new code, right? New features. Now what they will do is they will pull the code using git pull command. Okay, we will go into detail when we are learning Git, right? How actually we can pull the code from the repository, how to create the repositories locally, how to create the repositories remotely, everything, right? Then we will discuss more in detail. For now, like Git is assume that Git is a version control system. okay, which is used to maintain the different versions of a code, using which we can pull the code from the repository, we can update the code, and again we can push it to the repository. So as part of the DevOps course, we are learning Git also. Git is a version control tool which is used to maintain the code of different versions so that all the code should be in sync with the other developers. Okay. So everyone is clear with this, why you are using Git and why you are using GitHub. Git is an underlying technology and a version control system which is used to pull the code from the repository and changes and push the code to the repository. And GitHub is a repository itself, wherein we will maintain the code, complete code we are maintaining in a GitHub repository. Okay. So these are the tools as part of the DevOps course we are maintaining. We are learning this. Okay. So hope you understand why we are using Git and GitHub. Okay. So till now what we have done, we have a development environment wherein the developer will start working on the code, and then we have a production environment or a environment wherein we will install the application. The end users will use this environment. Okay. So the developer will build the code, and to deploy into the production server, right, we need to build the code actually. This point we have discussed in the application release process. Okay. To build the code, right, we have some steps that we need to follow. The code that is developed by developers, we need to follow few steps. Using that steps, we need to build the code. Once the code is built, right, one var file is generated to convert the code to an executable file. We are using some steps. We call it as a build tool. Using build tool, we convert the code to the any var file or shell script file or executable format. Any file converts into executable format, so that the production we will handle that we will hand over that executable file to the production team. Directly they will execute that file so that the application will deploy it without any issues. So this building is there, right, to convert the code into a executable format. Okay, we have like many tools in the market. One is like Maven, Gradle. Okay, there are many tools out there. Okay, so to convert, to make it, so earlier what in the current application release process, what we have discussed, developers will provide the steps. The production team has to follow the steps and install. So there is some manual intervention is happened, right? So to overcome this manual intervention, what DevOps methodology will do is they will introduce a tool wherein to convert the steps into a executable format directly, so that the production team shouldn't execute that steps manually. So they'll convert these tools. DevOps methodology will use any one of the tools to convert the steps into the executable format. Okay, it may be war file or shell script file or Python or any .exe file, anything, and will hand over to the production team. They will directly execute it, so that there won't be any delay in the process or any issues while installing. Okay, this build file will convert the code into the web. So as part of the DevOps course, we are learning Maven. Maven is a build tool that we are using, that we are going to learn in our complete course. Okay, this is like build tool that we are learning. There are many tools out there, but we are learning Maven, any one tool. So as a DevOps professional, you need to understand like how the Maven, how the build happening. Okay, how to convert the file into the build tool. There are few procedures, few steps, there are few concepts that we are going to discuss. So to automate this process, right, in the application release process, that there would be a manual steps. But when it comes to DevOps methodology, this process is automated. So to automate this process, right, in the application release process, there would be a manual steps. But when it comes to DevOps methodology, this process is automated. So to automate this process, right, in the application release process, there would be a manual steps. But when it comes to DevOps methodology, this process is automated. right? In the same way, the maintaining the code, everything, using it, we have maintaining the code with different versions. Okay, so as this process is automated, then this is more error prone. There is a less chances of getting errors because it is an automated process, and the application release process also would become faster. That is the main intention of using the DevOps methodology, right? In the application release process. Yeah. Hope this point is clear.
So where the Jenkins takes place?
Sorry?
Where the Jenkins takes place?
Yeah, we are coming to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
We have these traditional version control tools, like SVN and
Yeah.
all those. So, what is the difference between those and GitHub or Git?
Everything is same. The source control, version control systems, right? There are many technologies are there to maintain. The main motive of maintaining the version controls, right, is to make the different versions of the code available.
Okay, so I can also SVN
Yeah.
for GitHub.
All version control tools, right? They do the same work.
Okay.
There won't be like any similar the one which came early in the market, right? That is might used because of some price issues. Some people may use some other tools. So all the tools is main purpose of tool is maintaining the different code of version so that they can maintain the different versions of the code to push the code to the repositories, everything. So all source code SCMs, right, would be same. Okay. So here we are going to learn Git. That's it.
So all are compatible with IDEs, right?
Yes, yes. All are compatible. Okay. Yeah. Good that you asked a question. Okay. Now we will see the next. Okay. Now assume that the code is developed, right? This is a development environment. And this is a build environment. This is a test environment. And here it is a production environment. Okay. So what developers team is, they will build the code. Okay. What the build server will do is assume that these are different environments in our current client. Okay, that we are using. One is development server, build server, test server, and production server. Okay. So developments will do the code. Like the build server, what it will do, it will convert the code into the WAR file or jar file or any executable format. And then this, we are deploying that in a test server wherein the testing process will happen. Each component, right? The manual testing team would be there for in any company. Okay. So they will test the application, like everything, every functionality is working fine, or different option used in the website is working fine or that. Okay. This process is the converting the code into jar file or WAR file is an automatic process, but we need to execute this script manually in the test server, right? To deploy the application. And then we need to we need to test the functionality of each feature in the website. Okay. In the same way, once testing is completed, again, we need to move that executable format file in the production system, and we need to execute it manually. If you see the entire process, right? Okay. Converting here is, this process is become automated as a process of develop. And coming to here, right, from building to test, we are executing it manually. Okay. And testing is happen also manually. Production, we are deploying the same application to the production system. Everything is manually. Okay. We need to again monitor this, right? Once the application is deployed, we need to monitor. Okay. So this also is a manual process. So if you see that, the main intention of going to DevOps methodology is to overcome this manual intervention so that there shouldn't be any errors, there shouldn't be any delay in the application release process, right? So to automate this complete deployment process from once the code is building, right? Once the code is building is completed, every process should be automated. To make it automated, we have many tools out there in the market. We call those tools as CI/CD tools. Okay, there are many tools are there in the market to make this complete process automated. We have Jenkins. Okay, we have Git lab, GitLab Actions. There are many tools. GitLab Actions are there, Jenkins are there, and there are many few tools available in the market. Okay, so to automate this process completely. So once the code is deployed, right, till the end deployment, there shouldn't be any manual intervention. Directly the end users has to access the application. So this complete process will be taken care by the CI/CD. We are creating a pipeline actually. There would be some process actually. We are going to create the pipeline. Using that pipeline, we will automate this complete process. So in this scenario, we are using the Jenkins. There are many tools out there, right? As I said, but here as part of the course, we are learning Jenkins to design a pipeline in such a way that the complete deployment process should be automatic. Okay. So hope someone asked about the Jenkins, right? Hope you understand like why in which scenario we are using Jenkins. Is that clear? Or if you have any doubts? Okay. So silence means I am taking it that there are no doubts. This concept is clear.
I think whenever you will go deep and dive, then it comes the doubt. Right now, the concept is okay. Like you are explaining, this is the things takes place. So whenever we will go deep and dive, I think we will get some doubts by learning.
Yeah. Yes. Once we install the Jenkins tool, right? So once we install the Jenkins tool, then we'll come to know how to. We will in the Jenkins tool, right? We are going to create a pipelines actually. So in that pipeline, we'll have different stages. Okay. Each stage we will mention that in this particular stage we have to build the WAR file. We will create another stage. In that stage, the deployment should happen. In the second stage, testing should happen. The complete code testing. In another stage, the code quality control will check there are any vulnerabilities in the code or that. So we'll create another stage to deploy the tool. We'll create another stage to monitor that application that we have deployed. So we'll create multiple stages using Jenkins so to make this application the release process smoother, completely automated.
So for this course, you will use AWS Cloud.
Yes.
Okay.
We are going to use AWS Cloud. So everyone has to create the account. Anyway, we'll have like another demo on AWS. Maybe we are planning on Monday. So first we will, as part of the course, first we will start with the AWS. We'll cover a few concepts in the AWS so that you'll all get familiar with the AWS concepts, everything to have good understanding on the cloud environment. Because in the current market scenario, right, along with DevOps, any cloud is mandatory. So because everyone is using the cloud only in the complete environment. So along with the DevOps, one cloud is mandatory. So the Devops is planned to have one cloud. There are many clouds out there, right? AWS, Azure, Oracle, GCP, IBM. So we are going to learn AWS. Yeah. Okay. Now we have covered. Now we will in this during this stage, right, in the application release process, we'll use Jenkins. Okay. Now. Okay. So now assume that we need to install an application, right? Development team developed a code. We need to install some few right? Suppose if they are developing the code in Java, okay, we need to install Java and related dependencies. If you are installing any other like Python, okay, we need to install Python and the respective libraries. If there are any dependencies, we need to install that dependencies also. Okay. Assume that libraries, we need to install libraries, we need to install dependencies. Okay. For it to install any particular software, right? To develop any application, there might be some softwares we need to install. Using that, they will develop the code. And in that also, if you are adding any features, right? If we need any particular softwares that need to be installed to use that additional features, right? We are going to install some new packages as per the requirement to work the tool properly. Okay. So now what development team has to provide to the test team or deployment team, right? So till part here it is dev and this is a deployment team. Right? Okay. So now the development team has to inform to the deployment team, yeah, we are using these libraries and these dependencies to work the Kukatpally website perfectly without any issues. So this process now what happened is the files that we are going to install or the libraries, the dependencies, right? Those process is now manual. They need to provide that to the test team or deployment team. They will manually install the steps actually. So now what happened if they forgot to share some libraries or the versions that the development team is using is different from the versions that deployment team is using. So this process is happened is manual, right? We need to overcome this scenario. So the main intention of DevOps is nothing should be manual, everything should be automated. So to overcome these dependency issues, package issues, library issues, right? Now there is a method container technology available out there in the market. Okay, there are many there, Docker, Rocket. Okay, there are many are there. So to overcome this dependency issues, this manual intervention of installing the applications, right? For that, we are going to the containerization technology. So what we do is in this containerization technology, we will containerize this complete application into a single package. Okay, we will hand over that package to the deployment team. So what deployment team will do it directly, they will run this package on the environment so that they won't worry on the dependencies that need to install manually. So we are converting these complete steps into a single package and then we'll hand over it. So this process is now what happening. So what are the libraries that they are using? Everything is now it is in the package. There is no need to worry about the manual installations, manual steps of installing the complete softwares, everything. So we are converting the steps into a single package format. We call it as a containerization. Okay. Now, as part of the course, we are learning Docker. Docker is a containerization tool, okay, which packages the application in a single file or which package the application. We call it as an image, Docker image, we can say. With the complete steps has been converted to a single image. Using that image, we are deploying it into the test server or production server so that to overcome these steps that we are following manually. So the container technology that we are using to convert the application into a single image, we are using Docker. So as part of the course, we are using Docker so that to avoid the manual steps of installing the packages, libraries, dependencies, and the steps to install the application. So everything we are converting the complete steps into a package. We call that as a image. like Docker image. We'll get to know much into deeper when we are discussing about the Docker. Okay. So in this scenario, to automate this installable process, everything, we are using Docker. So as part of the course, right, we are learning a container technology, that is Docker. Docker is the most widely used technology by most of the companies. Yeah, there are many other container technologies also there, but Docker is the one that we are using.
And
Okay. Yeah. Yes, somebody asking question?
Yeah, Kubernetes also you can learn, right?
Yeah, I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
Docker is a containerization tool. Kubernetes is a orchestration tool. Okay, as in this is a development environment, this is a test environment, this is a prod environment. Okay, assume, okay, the scenario would be best explained using one environment. Okay, assume that we are taking one single environment, or we can take two environments, dev and okay, dev and prod environment. Now assume that the application, we have converted the application and we are running that application as a package using the Docker. Now this is assume that the Docker, we are deployed the application using Docker image and the application is running fine on a dev environment currently. Now the requirement got, we have like, assume that till now the number of users using this application is 1,000. Okay. Now what we have to do, we have a requirement from the client that the number of users is going to increase. Okay. So we need to maintain the number of, we need to maintain the server in such a way that we should handle that load actually. Okay. Then in that scenario, what we will use is, okay, we will run the same Docker containers. Now this is a one Docker container wherein we have the application. So we will launch another instance to support 2,000 users. In the same way, we will keep on multiplying the containers so that the load used by the end users, right, that can be handled using this. So everything is application. The same edupoly.in website is present in the application. Okay, we are deploying multiple containers in such a way that after that, what we do is we'll create a load balancer here. Okay. The end users will try to hit the load balancer. Then the load balancer will try to update the load to the respective containers depending upon the requirement. Okay. So now the load balancer is 2,000 members is accessing. So we will deploy two containers are enough to manage the load of 2,000. So the traffic will be divided into these containers. Assume that the number of users are increased to 3,000. Automatically, the new container will launch. Okay. Then the traffic would be directly.
Is there any upper limit? How many
we can set the limit. Using Kubernetes, right? We can set the limit. Okay, depending upon our requirement. So the number of containers will increase, right? Here. So to manage these containers, if you are using one container, we can use Docker run. We'll use a Docker run to run the image, right? In the to run the container, Docker run commands would be there. So when the number of containers got increased, right, it was difficulty to manage the number of containers. So in this scenario, what we'll use is we will use a Kubernetes. Kubernetes is a orchestration tool which is used to manage the containers. So using Kubernetes, we will deploy a container. We will deploy a container onto the server using Kubernetes. We will configure in such a way that we can increase the containers depending upon the load. We can increase the size of the container Okay, if number of users got increased, right, then there are many features are there in the Kubernetes. We're going to discuss. Okay, once we deep dive into this, the main intention now you need to understand is Kubernetes is an orchestration tool that to manage the containers. That's all. We can orchestration is nothing but a managing. Kubernetes is called orchestration that you want to manage the containers. Suppose the load is decreased, so automatically one of the container will get. We can delete a container using. So we can configure the Kubernetes YAML. Everything we will write Kubernetes in a YAML files. Okay, this is a configuration file. Okay, we will contain the we call it as a pods actually in the Kubernetes. You'll learn more these terms when we discuss that. So number of, we call each container, we call it as a pod in the Kubernetes terminology. Okay. So using Kubernetes, we can configure that application in such a way that if the number of users increase, automatically the number of pods will get increased. If the number of users decreases, automatically these pods get deleted. Okay. This is one of the sample real-time application that we are discussing. There are many other features using why you are going to Kubernetes. So the only thing is to manage the containers. Okay, we are going to the Kubernetes just to be an overview. Okay, so as part of the course, right, we are learning Kubernetes. Okay, hope you have clear why we are going to Kubernetes. In the same way, in the production environment, right, using Kubernetes, we will deploy the Docker container. So depending upon the requirement, we can launch number of containers and we can manage these containers. We can delete if it is not required. We can create if it is required. We can increase the size of the containers. We can number of containers can be increased or number of containers can be decreased. So all this can be done using Kubernetes. Very, very important. Okay. So we will discuss deep dive into most of the concepts, almost all the concepts in Docker and Kubernetes, so that there would be many opportunities in the market only with respect to Docker. Apart from the DevOps role, there would be separate opportunities will be there for Docker and Kubernetes. Like you can have a separate role for Kubernetes engineer. Okay. So this is very much important, this concept, so that you will have multiple options if you are trying for a new job or if you are trying for the new looking for new operators, right? If you learn the DevOps complete course, right, then the opportunities will increase if you have a very good understanding on the Kubernetes part.
So this course total how many days you will take?
Yeah, this course is 60 plus hours will get.
Okay.
Almost it will take 2.5 months, 2.5 months.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll discuss about this course structure, everything in the end. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now we learned these tools to completely automate the process, right?
Hello, excuse me.
Yeah.
Hello. This is going to be class will be another 1 hour.
No, it would be another 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So now okay. So now we have installed the application on the development server. We have installed the application on the test server. We have installed the application in the production server. Okay. So now what happened is like the application has been installed on development, test and production. Okay. So there are some operating system services would be there. We need to suppose, for example, we need to change the configuration of some particular file on all the servers. For example, we need to create a user so that only that specific user should install the application, or only that user will have the privileges to run the application, or that user should have only specific privileges to modify this application. So now we have different number of environments. Dev, test, prod. Assume in a company there are some around minimum there would be for a single project there would be some around 50 to 100 servers they would maintain depending upon the size of the application. So in the environment, right now I have a requirement. The application has been created on all the servers. Now I have a requirement from the client that only we need to restrict the privileges to running the application to the specific user only, so that all other users in the system shouldn't edit this, only should have read privileges. Okay, so now what happened is like we are using we cannot create on all 100 servers the users, right, manually. We need to have some mechanism in such a way that we should create the users, we should assign privileges to that specific users, so that only this user should run the application. Okay, so in this scenario, right, we have an configuration tool. We have a configuration tool that we are using to create a configuration, to modify the configuration on almost the servers in our environment. So Ansible, there are many configuration tools available. Ansible, Chef, Puppet are there. So we are using Ansible as part of the course, right? We are learning Ansible. Ansible is a configuration management tool. Is a configuration management tool which automates the creation of, which automates the configuration, creating the, in this case, creating the users, assigning privileges to the users, giving some specific executable permissions to the users. All this can be done using Ansible configuration tool. We will install Ansible on a particular server using, we will update the configuration on a particular server. We will push it to all the servers in the environment, so that no need to execute the steps manually in each environment. So as part of the course, right, we are learning Ansible. This is very much important actually, so that we can create the update the configuration on all the servers in the environment, not only creating the users, everything, set the permissions, starting a service. Suppose if we want to start a service, we want to stop a service, we want to shut down a particular server, we want to start a particular server. So all those configuration can be taken care using Ansible. So Ansible is a configuration management tool that we are learning as part of the course. Okay, so once deployment, everything is happened, right? So assume that deployment is happened, completed on a server, production server, deployment is done. So what we need to do, the main system administrator work is to manage the install the deployment and need to keep on monitoring it, right? Whether there is any issues on the installation applications or the system memory CPU functioning is properly or not, whether there any storage issues are there on the server, or the application is taking more memory. So all this will be done by the operations team, right? So now this work is getting manual. So now we have tools actually to monitor this completely, and to monitor the all the servers in the environment, either production, development, test. So we are learning Prometheus tool. Prometheus tool is a operation like monitoring tool that we install on a particular server. Okay, we'll configure in such a way that it will keep on monitoring the available servers in your company. So if there is any issues with the server, it will send an alert to the Prometheus server. Then automatically the respective team should manage. So if there are 100 servers in our customer environment, so we cannot monitor each and every server, right? So we are using a Prometheus server to automate this process. We install the Prometheus on a particular server. We will configure it in such a way that it will keep on, we'll configure few parameters to monitor the memory, to check the server status, to check the CPU, to check the space. So there will be many parameters there. We will configure in this. So depending upon the parameters that we configured, it will keep on monitoring all the servers. So we are learning Prometheus is a monitoring tool that we are learning as part of a DevOps. So we have another tool also. We call it as a Grafana. Okay, Grafana is a tool that all the data that Prometheus is going to collect, right? The current data, like how much memory is using, how much CPU, it will keep on collecting and it will keep on monitoring, right? To display the collected data in a graphical way, in a more readable format or more understandable format, or in a bar graphs or different formats, right? There is a tool out there, Grafana, which will collect all the data, which will use the data collected by the Prometheus, and it will display in a graphical format. For that, we are learning Grafana. Okay. So these are all the tools that we are going to learn as part of a DevOps. So first, what's happening is, first we got the idea, we collected the requirements, then we code it, we tested it. The simple application release process I'm talking about. We tested it and we have deployed on a server and we monitor. So this is the application release process, right? So in this application release process, what's happening? Once we have the idea, we'll collect the requirements and then we will code it, we will test it, we will deploy it, then we will monitor this. This complete process is right. This complete process is automated. Using DevOps, we are automating this complete application release process in such a way that this complete process is seamless. There shouldn't be any manual intervention, so that we can release the application within a time. So once the code is ready, right? Once the development team provides the code, then the complete process, once the development team will provide the code, right? Till monitoring, everything should be automated. There shouldn't be any manual engine. Once the code is ready, testing should happen, code quality check should happen. Yeah, I forgot one tool, code quality check. That there would be Sonar Cube is with there. Sonar Cube is a code quality control tool. We are going to learn this one as well. So code quality check and deployment, everything. So this continuous process, right? The seamless process that should happen in the application release process, completely automated. That process, we call it as a DevOps. That's why DevOps is not a single tool. We call it as a DevOps is a methodology. DevOps is a methodology. It is a combination of practices and tools, which will make the DevOps a process to make this application release process seamless. So earlier, it would be taking months to release the code to the production. Now, as the process is completely automated, right? Once the development team submits the code, automatically the complete process is now automated. We can deliver to the application release process is now, we can do it every day or else every week, depending upon our requirement. So what's happening is continuous integration, continuous deployment will happen using DevOps. That's what we call it as continuous integration. Means new code is developers will start developing the new code, right? So continuous integration will happen. Continuous deployments means it will deploy to the production server and keep on monitoring. Again, we have the new requirements. New features should be added. Again, we'll gather the requirements. We will develop the code. We will test the code and we will deploy it. So the continuous integration till here, like developing the code by adding the new features, we call as a continuous integration. So once the code is developed, we are deploying it on a target servers continuously. So that is CI/CD. So the DevOps, we call it as a CI/CD methodology, continuous integration and continuous deployment, using which we can make the application process smoother. So that's why we are defining the DevOps as DevOps is a methodology. We'll use several practices and tools to automate the complete application release process. So this is like the understanding of DevOps. Okay. So hope everyone got the idea, like why we are using DevOps, what are the tools that we are going to learn DevOps, everything. Okay. So
how much depth coding do we need, and which languages apart from Python do we need?
no, for the DevOps, right? The prerequisites that you need to have is good a knowledge on Linux. Okay. If you don't have understanding on Linux, right, we need to learn this. Anyway, from the next class onwards, first we'll concentrate on this one, learning the Linux.
The CI/CD you will write, that one is from Python script or like shell script?
No, CI/CD pipeline, we have like two methods we can do it. We can use it as a Groovy script would be there. That is a simple configuration. No scripting is needed for writing the pipelines. Okay. We can use directly, the options would be there. Without pipeline also we can write it. Okay, we are using Groovy script, that actually the scripting skills is not needed for that. Okay, just writing the indentation would be used in writing the Groovy script. Okay, that would be much easier. So the basic understanding that we need to, everyone should develop prerequisite is a understanding on the Linux part.
Okay. Would you be teaching the writing the pipelines in Python as well?
No, the pipelines wouldn't be in the Python.
Okay.
Okay, pipelines would be on the simple we call it as a Groovy script. We call it as the Python scripting, everything that we will use to automate the process in the deployment environment. In the production, Linux server is there. Okay, if something we want to automate at this operating system level, right, then we are using shell script or Python. Okay. So the basic is JavaScript. You should be expert in this. Okay. So the main intention of the DevOps role is there, right? Once the development team submits the code, so development team shouldn't worry about this code. This code will provide by the development team. Once the code is provided, how the complete automation process will happen will be taken care by the DevOps professional. Okay. So don't worry.
But nowadays they are asking that like Python, do you using Python in DevOps or anything? So why they are asking like this?
Yeah, that's what I just said, right? To in the operating system level, right? In the operating system level, when we are performing some tasks, okay, we are deploying the application, everything is done. Okay, there are some tasks in the Linux environment that we can automate it. Okay, so there we are using the shell scripting or Python scripting. Okay, you will come to know when we perform this task actually on the Linux side.
Okay.
See, the process that we are doing, everything is right. Everything using the tool, we are deploying the cycle, right? But in the real time, you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, there was some internet issue. Yeah. So in a real-time environment, right? We use all these tools to deploy the application, everything. But okay, but when coming to integration of any tool is happening. For example, we are running a tool on a Linux environment. We are running a tool on a Linux environment. Okay. So all this process we can do it, but we are installing a tool. To install a specific tool, right? We have to run some procedures, right? It's not like any tool that already existed in the market. Suppose your company is maintaining a tool. Okay, some steps would be followed. So to automate these steps, some commands should be performed at the Linux operating system level. We need to give permissions like chmod, execute permissions. We need to run the specific script. Okay, we need to start the service. We need to change some permissions. So all the steps that we do under the Linux environment, right? So these steps we can be automated using shell script. There are many tasks that we would be performing on the operating system level as well, apart from all this. Okay, so that scenario, we would be using the shell script and the Python scripting, or depends upon the requirement. Okay, so that's why companies is asking to get the knowledge on Linux and shell scripting and the Python scripting.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So we would be it would be almost like 60 plus hours would be there for the complete DevOps course. We'll cover that. In that 60 plus hours, we'll complete the complete DevOps tools, everything. And the classes would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday from 8:30 to 10:30 or 10 to 10:30, anyway between 10 to 10:30, depending upon the topic. Okay, from 8:30 to 10 only on these days, 8:30 a.m. to 10:30. Okay, it would be almost 60 plus hours. It would be taking around 2.5 months. Okay.
Is there any slot in the evening or night?
No, as of now, we have only this slot currently.
Yeah, I can. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, hope everyone got an idea about this.
So this is only for the DevOps, right? Apart
Yeah, this
from
is only for
AWS.
DevOps, correct. And for
Yeah.
AWS, right, we have an introduction class on Monday. Okay. First, we will have the introduction class from Wednesday, right? Again, Friday, Saturday, we would be working on the Linux part. Okay, so that this is more important to understand the main prerequisites, right? To get the understanding hands-on everything. So we install every tool, everything on a Linux server only. So to understand that, we would be using I'm going to have 2 classes on Linux. Okay. And again, Monday, we are going to start with AWS introduction, and for almost 8 classes, we would be covering 16 hours. We would be covering the AWS. Okay. So how the things would be there in the AWS cloud environment, everything. After that, we would be continuing with our DevOps tools, GitHub, Docker, Kubernetes, Jenkins, everything. This is our code structure. Okay. Any more doubts?
Till now, no.
Okay. Yeah. If anybody have any doubts, right? I think you have the contact number of the institute, right? You can share it. You can reach them, and we would be adding the persons who are joining in a WhatsApp group so that you can post your questions, everything in the group. Okay.
Okay.
Let me stop the recording first.